Hi, I'm Phil Lipoff, and we have breaking news to bring to you right now. A spokesperson for former President Trump's campaign says he is safe following, in their words, gunshots in his vicinity. Details are very limited at this moment, but we are awaiting a press conference that should happen at any moment where we will get more information on this shooting. To be clear, we're being told the president was just in the vicinity, the former president, in the vicinity of these gunshots. Mary Alice, I've got to start with you. The latest on the former president being in the vicinity of a shooting. Do we know more of what that means?
No, not at this time, Phil. Of course, we are asking all of our sources, local law enforcement with Secret Service, but we're really waiting for that press conference by the sort of local sheriff that we're expecting this hour. We're going to learn a lot more. Obviously, it is so important that we learn immediately that the former president is safe and okay. His campaign confirming that, law enforcement confirming that. But we don't know if this was related. But one thing our sources have told us that it does not appear in any way at this point that Trump was the target or involved in this incident at all. But like you said, the campaign saying that he was in the vicinity.
This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. If you haven't heard, once again, they are claiming that there was another assassination attempt on Donald Trump. This time, of course, it's not going to be during one of his rallies where they could stage the entire thing on camera. This time, the story is even more suspicious. Well, of course, it's suspicious because it happened on a golf course. And how convenient, back in July when this other thing unfolded at his rally, I talked about how if somebody was and somebody did want to take Trump out, if the government was really after him, they would easily be able to get to him on a golf course with nobody around, out in the middle of a course somewhere where there might be some civilians, but there wouldn't be cameras everywhere, and somebody could access a golf course a lot easier than accessing a rally where Secret Service is on hand. So get this. I'm reading to you legitimately from Donald Trump Jr.'s Twitter account. Again, folks, he says, shots fired at Trump golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. An AK-47 was discovered in the bushes, per local law enforcement. The Trump campaign has released a statement confirming former President Trump is safe. That's his father, who he's referring to as former President Trump, instead, of course, of dad. And he wrote, a suspect has reportedly been apprehended. What's interesting about that is the calling card of our government, right? An AK-47. But it's almost as if the government is deliberately doing it by mentioning within 25 minutes or an hour of it happening that they found an AK-47 in the bushes. It's almost like they're gaslighting the conservatives out there, right? Because all conservatives, even though they still believe in the left-right paradigm, they're well aware that every one of these shooting events that occurs are mainly staged and that the government always makes sure every single time that the shooter has an AK-47 because that's the weapon the government wants to get from civilians. So the majority of people are going to see this who are conservative, and again, they're going to get gaslit into thinking that the government is trying to take out Trump with one of their own patsies, one of their own Manchurian candidates, and of course he had an AK-47 so that we can call for more gun grabs and red flag laws. When I talk about things that have to be mutual on the left and right, I talk a lot about the technology, how all conservatives will still push technology. They will not say that we need to reverse course on technology and go back to living the way that we lived at least 20 years ago. Really, we should go back to living the way we lived 100 years ago if people want to have good mental health. But the other thing they have to have conservatives on board with, just like during the outbreak, they needed conservatives on board with that magic potion and it didn't work. Red flag laws. They need conservatives on board with red flag laws. So they also need to convince them that there's crazy blue-haired liberals running around who are getting access to guns too, who are targeting people like Trump, who are targeting Christians. That was the whole thing that went down at the school over a year ago that I covered in Tennessee, I believe it was, where somebody who referred to themselves as the opposite gender targeted a Christian school. That's why they want red flag law, false flags in place as well, so they can convince both sides of the need for red flag laws and bans on AK-47. So this entire thing, of course, is suspicious, because you'd think after the first time somebody tried and made an attempt on Donald Trump's life, that maybe he'd have extra security if that really happened. And don't forget all the stuff that I covered with his ear miraculously healing, how the man was cued, the cameraman was cued to make sure he ran around stage and got the perfect shot, because it was all about getting that quote-unquote iconic picture. And now again, a month later, the narrative after hearing this is that everybody out there from one side, the Democrats, are all saying it's fake and it's staged, which is true. And conservatives, of course, will not believe that this is fake and staged. They'll believe whatever, fits their narrative is real and whatever doesn't is fake, when everybody together should be questioning the reality that is in front of us that's playing out on the news, which is fake and simulated, right? So one side is claiming it's fake. Of course, this is very much where we're headed now with misinformation. The Democrats are going to be on board too. Don't forget, they're going to get accused of the same stuff like people like me and you get accused of, with calling school events not real. These things with Alex Jones that he set a precedent for, they're going to filter over to them as well. Them saying that these attempts on Trump aren't real. Oh, they're saying it without any evidence. They should be held accountable too. Remember that narrative that was out there after the Trump assassination attempt? Democrats were saying that it wasn't real, and conservatives were doing the same thing by saying, hey, we need to censor them. They need to be taken to court, right? Just like I talked about, each side canceling the other out. Now conservatives calling for lawsuits against Democrats who question their boy Donald Trump and any assassination attempt on him being staged or faked. So now, again, we're going to see even more support for Donald Trump, and this is going to convince the conservatives even more in their own mind, of course, because this all is happening in their own mind, because they're believing this alternate reality that comes out and is played out in the news. They're going to believe, wow, they really want him dead. They're really, really afraid. They're going to make sure he doesn't make it to November 5th, right? I wouldn't be surprised to hear more of the narrative that God intervened as well. That was a big narrative with the last assassination attempt, right? God intervened. It was divine intervention. The blasphemy was getting thrown all over the place at the Republican National Convention. And when I say blasphemy, I consider it pretty blasphemous when people speak on behalf of God and decide, well, if something fits what they really, really like, that it's divine intervention from God, almost speaking on behalf of God, which was pretty disgusting to see. But at this point, the psychosis is so real and so thick and so deep that these people are convincing themselves that all these events are actually happening now to Donald Trump, as if, you got to look at it from both perspectives, right? Look at it from the perspective of how in the world would the CIA, our own government, Black Ops, miss 2 attempts on his life? It wouldn't even be possible for them to miss the first time, the way that whole thing played out. And they're going to tell us that it's the government, the deep state, going after Trump. And you're going to tell me that now twice they weren't able to get the shot and get the job done? Are you joking with me? And they'll say that, again, what narrative will come out of it that'll convince them that they're unable to get Trump because of one thing, right? They'll say it's God, that God's continuing to do it. And that'll make their psychosis go deeper and deeper and deeper. So let me just read you some of the stuff that's been released from the fake news media. They say, the Trump campaign on Sunday said former President Trump is safe following gunshots in his vicinity. Trump is safe following the shots. No further details at this time. The former president was playing golf at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. The course was immediately locked down, according to sources familiar. The Secret Service said on X it's working with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office to investigate a protective incident involving Trump. The Secret Service said the incident occurred shortly before 2. Well, since then, obviously, we've gotten the big story because Donald Trump's son has tweeted out about it. He's not down there. I mean, I love how they run to Twitter. These people run to social media to put this stuff out there. And people don't realize how they're being worked into this and worked into it. If they just shut off from technology, not only would they not care about this stuff, they wouldn't even know what was happening. And they don't need to know. But that's part of a psychosis, right? Waiting for Donald Trump an hour after somebody supposedly attempts to take his father's life to tweet out a press report so that everybody out there could agree. Oh my, he wrote, and how he deliberately put AK-47 in there, right? Of course he did. Of course he deliberately put AK-47 in there, discovered in the bushes, right? Right? So the narrative that'll come from this is conservatives will once again say the deep state's trying to take him out. And they're going to say, in fact, that the deep state did so using an AK-47 so that people will call for a ban on AK-47, which is true, the AK-47 aspect, but it's really the calling card of the government because every false flag shooting, an AK-47 is used in it. Every school, right? Before you get any information, when you just find out, when it just breaks that something has happened at a school, right? And I've done this for, this is 10 years now that this has been going on places like YouTube. And you go, what do you say? You say, well, we already know, right? He's going to be a student who is bullied. He's going to have that weapon. Now the narrative has changed where they have a manifesto. And 9 times out of 10, the shooter will never live to see another day. He'll never have a lie to tell because he won't be alive to tell it, right? Now, the most recent situation, the person was supposedly alive, and it's probably because they do listen to people like me and you. That's how they end up getting us censored. The algorithm listens, it feeds it to the NSA and to the government as well. So we get censored, but they like to know how we're thinking in a sense because I'm giving you my thoughts. All of us pretty much have like-minded thoughts about what's going on because we all realize that what's happening is simulated and not real. Unlike the conservative movement, who is stuck in the left-right paradigm, they're playing right into the government's hand, right? So they love to listen and hear what we have to say. That's why maybe they took the narrative. I mean, I don't know how many of you are from my previous, existence here on this platform. I think the majority of you are. But in July, all the videos on that situation with Trump in Pennsylvania are no longer here. They've been scrubbed off the internet. But in almost every single video, I tried to use common sense logic and point out how the government, if somebody wanted to take him out, they could take him out in the middle of the night. They could take him out like Princess Diana in a tunnel somewhere. Very easy to do, right? They deliberately did it on a stage where there's cameras where everybody could see it because that's how they suck you into the psychosis. And I said, if they really wanted to get him, they could get him on a golf course, right? Well, here you go. Maybe they were listening. I don't know, right? Because everybody knows Trump plays golf. People can get onto a golf course. You can wander around. It's not like there's a security fence on most golf courses. I'm sure Mar-a-Lago probably does have a fence. But the story will get funnier, and I'll cover it as more information comes out. I'm just covering it as it literally just happened within the last hour or so of me recording it. But again, Donald Trump Jr. lets us all know, shots fired. Again, folks, exclamation point. Again, folks, shots fired. Make sure you get into the psychosis deeper. If you're a Trump supporter, get angrier and angrier and angrier. If you're a Democrat, start questioning those. Then we can put more laws in place about what you can question and what you can't question. Because now conservatives will say that we do need laws in place for misinformation, right? That's how this works, okay? 5 years ago, conservatives weren't calling for Democrats to be censored. It was just Democrats calling conservatives to be. And I warned about conservatives doing that. And of course, they eventually did, right? Oh, what they're saying, right? Same thing with the assassination attempt that happened in July. What happened right after? Conservatives were saying, just like what happened to Alex Jones, any Democrat out there that says this is fake, this didn't happen, that Trump staged it, should go to court, right? They want laws in place for misinformation. Pay attention to what's happening in Australia. Pay attention to that. I'll cover it again. I've covered it with the digital ID and their misinformation laws. They just passed or attempting to pass another law, and that's coming to America, right? So this gets conservatives on board if all these stories come out where they go, oh, Trump got killed in the debate with Kamala Harris. He looked like a lunatic. So he staged this event at his golf course where he has all the security there. And he staged it to make it look like they're after him. He's a victim again. He's a victim. So more people support him. And they're right. Because Trump is working with the deep state. Just like all of them in politics work together. They work together and they keep you trapped in the left-right paradigm in the hive mind. But that's what Democrats are going to say, guaranteed. And watch the conservatives say, well, why can they question it? Why are they allowed to do it? Let's take them to court. Maybe Donald Trump will sue a civilian. Would that surprise you if Donald Trump sues some medium-ranged YouTuber or somebody out there who's pretends to be independent media, who's really working for the deep state, just like Alex Jones is working with the deep state, who comes out and says, oh, Donald Trump made this whole thing up and it does video after video, gets millions of views, and then Trump sues him, and then that guy loses a lawsuit for $1 billion, right? And then we'll set the precedent. It'll be in place for both sides thinking inside the hive mind without even realizing it. So, of course, it was an AK-47. Of course, we all know These stories are not real because the news itself is not real. It is not here to inform you. It is here to control you. That's the point of the news. And they manipulate your perception of reality if you think that these events, just because people tweet it out and they show you it with a camera and they say this is news, so this is real, that's how they manipulate your perception of the world. And that's how they flip the world upside down. That's how we get to the point that we're at. If we unplug, they lose their power. If you unplug from the matrix, you take yourself out of the left, right, take yourself away from the news and get off the technology, then humanity can save itself from the beast system. But people are getting more sucked into it because of news like this. It feeds them. It feeds them. And that's part of what I always talk about. That's why every day, do we have any days where stuff doesn't go on that's pretty insane? Another assassination attempt, as if it's just passing news on a Sunday for Donald Trump, right? Every day there's just utter insanity in the news. And they just draw you in and draw you in and draw you in because they know you won't shut it off. You will not shut your technology off. You will not be removed from your technology. They know at this point that you won't be. So they're going to continue to hit you with lies, lies, and lies to suck you in even further into the psychosis. I thank everybody for being here. If anything more comes out of it, I'll cover it. But thanks again, everybody. God bless all of you and your families, as always.